Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 9, Verse 5. Narada Praha Munaye Sarasvatyastate Nripa Jayati Brahma Paramam Yasayami Pratejase Narada Praha Munaye Sarasvatyasate Nripa Jayate Brahma Paramam Yasayami Pratejase Narada Prahamunaya Sarasvatyasate Nita Jayate Brahma Paramam Yasayami Pratejase. Narada, the great sage, Narada, Paraha, instructed, Munaye, unto a great sage, Sarasvatya, of the river Sarasvati, Tate, on the bank, Nipa, O king, Jayate, unto the meditative, Brahma, absolute truth, Paramam, the supreme, Vyashaya, unto Srila Vyasadeva, Amita, unlimited, Tejase, unto the powerful. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, C.C. Bhaktivedanta Guru Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada. Translation: in succession, O king, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimited powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth in the bank of the river Sarasvati. In the 5th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada instructed the great sage Vyasadeva as follows: O greatly fortunate, pious philosopher, your name and fame are universal, and you are fixed in the absolute truth with spotless character and infallible vision. I ask you to meditate upon the activities of the personality of Godhead, whose activities are unparalleled. So in the disciplic succession of the Brahma Sampradaya, the practice of yoga meditation is not neglected, but because the devotees are bhakti yogis, they do not undertake the trouble to meditate upon the impersonal Brahman, as indicated here. They meditate on Brahma Paramam, or the Supreme Brahman. Brahman realization begins from the impersonal effulgence, but by further progress of such meditation, manifestation of the Supreme Soul, Paramatma realization takes place, and progressing further, realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fixed. Sri Narada Muni, as the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, knew very well the position of Vyasadeva, and thus he certified the qualities of Srila Vyasadeva as fixed in the absolute truth with great vow, etc. Narada advised meditation upon the transcendental activities of the Lord. Impersonal Brahman has no activities, but the personality of Godhead has many activities, and all such activities are transcendental, without any tinge of material quality. If the activities of the Supreme Brahman were material activities, then Narada would not have advised Vyasadeva to meditate upon them. And the Parabrahman is Lord Sri Krishna, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna realized the factual position of Lord Krishna, he addressed Lord Krishna in the following words. Arjuna summarized the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita by his realization of Lord Krishna and thus said, "My dear personality of Godhead, you are the supreme absolute truth, the original person, in the eternal form of bliss and knowledge. And this is confirmed by Narada, Ashita, Devala, and Vyasadeva. And above all, your personal self has also confirmed it. When Vyasadeva fixed his mind in meditation, he did it in Bhakti Yoga trance and actually saw the Supreme Person with Maya, the illusory energy, in contraposition. As we have discussed before, the Lord's Maya or illusion is also a representation because Maya has no existence without the Lord. Darkness is not independent of light. Without light, no one can experience the contraposition of darkness. However, this Maya or illusion cannot overcome the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but stands apart from him. Therefore, perfection in meditation is realization of the Personality of Godhead, along with his transcendental activities. Meditation on the impersonal Brahman is a troublesome business for the meditator. Let's confirm the Bhagavad Gita. Om Ajnanandasya Gunanjana Salakaya Chakshuralimitayena Ajmi Shri Gurave Namaha. Here's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. From wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of itself. So the Bhagavad Gita is telling us about the nature of the mind. The mind is flickering, restless, turbulent, obstinate, very, very strong, more difficult to control than a raging wind, he said. However, a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him or her. So it is said, there's another verse, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver. So the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the Supreme. So in our Bhakti school, we learn the best way to control the mind and completely purify the mind is simply to rest the mind in the sound vibration of Krishna's holy name, which not only pacifies the turbulent, restless, obstinate mind, but it completely purifies it. And then it is said, the mind can become the best friend rather than the worst enemy. Of course, the question we may ask, everyone is, in general, is how are you doing with your relationship with your mind? Do you sometimes find it racing here and there, taking you here, there and everywhere? Giving you no peace, no happiness? Do you find it hard to concentrate when you're chanting? You're trying to chant your rounds and you're trying to listen to the mantra, but you're just thinking about all these things. You ever find that happening? It's probably not common now, but I mean, it is said, that you cannot actually do two things. You can't listen to the mind and actually listen to the mantra at the same time. It's either one or the other. Because some people say, no, it's okay. I can do it. It's just tighten that up a bit. So the idea is, we have to bring the mind back. When it races off and you start thinking about, what you're going to have for breakfast today, or what you're going to do today, or what happened yesterday, or just thinking about, when you're going to do your washing, or whatever. I mean, the mind, it's just incredible, how it just It's like, I think they did a survey. It's like, you have like so many tens of thousands of thoughts every day. So, the Bhagavad Gita tells us about the mind, the nature mind. And Prabhupada explains actually the mind is taking us here, there and everywhere. Telling us happiness is here, happiness is there, giving us no peace or happiness. So some people in the world, they get relief from the restless mind, but in different ways. You know, some people just absorb themselves in television. I was talking about that yesterday. When I go and visit my mother, the TV's on all day and all night. And the only time she talks to me is during the commercials. And then I've got to tell her, turn it down, the commercials, they're blaring out. Buy this, buy that. It's the only time she'll talk to me, is when the commercials come. Otherwise, she's just like fixed on the TV, Actually, they say when you're watching TV, you go into an alpha state. It's like an alpha state, which is, and it's very close to someone who's completely unconscious. People just completely lose themselves, and they just absorb. They're just absorbing into their hard drive, into their consciousness, all this materialistic propaganda and ideals, and people formulate their whole way of life, and they create an image for themselves, based on all this materialistic propaganda that's coming out. They drive a certain car, they dress a certain way, they speak a certain way. It's incredible. And you see the little kids, as soon as they can hold their head up, they're on the TV, And they're all there, even I see, my little nephews, they're watching, what they show you, Mr. Squiggles or something, and they're all doing the thing, the little things, and singing the little Mr. Squiggle songs. Was it Squiggle or? Mr. Wiggles, that's right, Wiggles. Little kids are all there, little kids, they're only like 2 years old, and they're singing the songs and doing the little antics. And of course, some people just absorb themselves in the internet, just like you can just get lost in the internet. I was just saying yesterday, I was just checking out this war in Russia and Ukraine, I was just checking out a few things, and then before I know it, 2 hours have gone. It's incredible. This time, people are just so absorbed, and some people spend, and there's a big problem actually in the world today, in the society. And some devotees actually had their children have this problem, is these war games. These games, this gaming, people spend, and you can challenge people all over the world, And people spend, and some kids, they're just 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, and the mothers just, the parents don't know what to do with them. They can't live normal lives. The mother just, every now and then she takes in a bit of food, and they're eating the food while they're watching we had one guy in Brisbane, Yaroslav, he's a devotee, and he's from Russia, but he was actually, when they made the ISKCON folio, they sent him a copy, because they had a special program where you couldn't access that copy, but he's one of the biggest crackers, this guy can crack anything, he can crack any code. He's a big hacker. Actually, he had a master's degree in mathematics, I remember that. But he would just sit there on his computer like all day, just there, and he'd be just eating his prasadam. And some people just absorb themselves in, newspapers, novels, the sports, the sporting events. It's like Radhanath Swami was saying once in class in Bombay, he was saying, so many ladies here in the temple, hundreds of ladies, where's all the men? And then he said, they're at home watching the cricket. And you sit there, just watching it. It's so boring, actually. It's just, people just sit there. I know my father was a cricketer. He actually played for Australia. He was a famous cricketer, my father. He was a famous fast bowler. Sport is a real part of our family tradition. And sometimes I go and visit Mum, and she's just there watching the cricket. hours and hours. And some people, actually there's one just recently, Australia beat India by 1-1. And the whole of India went into depression. And we just had a girl here actually, that Indian girl, what's her name? I can't remember now, but she was studying here in Adelaide. Yeah. She was telling her uncle, he's got every Foxtel channel. He's been watching cricket 24 hours a day. And he has it just blaring in the house. He was out there in the garden. And she thought, oh, he's not here, I'll just turn it down or turn it off. Then he hears this voice out in the garden, turn it back on. Some people absorb themselves in so many things in the war games. But others find that meditation is a better way. In fact, millions of people, young and old, in countries all over the world are meditating. Meditating in France, in Paris, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles. Even one of your relatives or friends may be a meditator. And the motive of many meditators, of course, is simply to relieve stress. The meditation, and does in fact relieve stress. And the benefits you get from freeing your mind from its everyday cares and worries and stress are just enormous. People feel enlivened, refreshed, much more focused, less distressed. Stress is a big disease in the modern day world. So although this is a wonderful achievement, you're hearing in this verse, the actual purpose of meditation goes far beyond that. In our modern scriptures, we learn that the ultimate goal of meditation is enlightenment. To understand and realize the absolute truth about the self, the universe, and about the Supreme Lord. So, to get the highest, what we're hearing here is to get the highest benefit from meditation, it depends on performing the right kind of meditation in the right way. So the goal of various meditators can be divided into three categories in terms of their understanding of the self, the Supreme Lord, and the universe. First, we got the voidists. You heard these people, there's actually people they're called voidists. And actually many Buddhists, they fall into this category. The voidists, they teach that through meditation, we can understand, we'll come to this incredible realization that ultimately there's no soul, there's no God, and there's no universe. And as long as we perceive these things, we suffer. So the goal of these meditators is a state of just complete nothingness, voidness, called nirvana, which all suffering ceases. They simply want to merge into the nothingness of nirvana. Sometimes they meditate on the sound of one hand clapping. So why are they doing this? It's an attempt to escape the difficulties of life, the difficulties we experience that we face living in this complicated world and experiencing the frustration, frustrated material desires. So this concept of oblivion, of nothingness, is very, very attractive to some people. Yet ultimately, when we think about it, it's very illogical that everything arose from nothing and everything is nothing. It makes no sense. And of course the impersonalists, they believe that through meditation we'll understand that individual existence, that individual spiritual existence is just, it's not real, it's an illusion. For them, the Supreme does exist, but he doesn't exist as a person. He just exists as this impersonal, effulgent, white light they call the mind. which is said to be, in the Vaishnava tradition, we call this Krishna's effulgence. It's this all-pervasive energy, like that everything is resting in, the planets, the universes, everything. So they say that in a state of total enlightenment, they believe the individual self just merges into the existence of the impersonal effulgence and thus becomes God, becomes the supreme. So they're always trying to do that. They're trying to become like a drop of water merging into the ocean. So impersonalism, like voidism, is a reaction to frustration of not finding happiness in this world. The frustration of unfulfilled material desires. Therefore, their solution is simply to try and merge with the Supreme. Like I said, a drop of water merges into the ocean to escape the difficulties of life. So this philosophy of impersonalism is also illogical. Just like actually Ramanujacharya, whose appearance day is coming up soon, he wrote 108 refutations against the impersonal philosophy. And I remember one of them, actually I used to have the book, I lost it. But one of them was innumerable waves splash within the great ocean. But can any one single wave become the ocean? So similarly, how is it that we can become God? Obviously, we can never become God. The Bhagavad Gita tells us this, confirms this, that God means the controller of all living entities. That no one is equal to God, no one is greater than Him. And of course, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself states that he himself is the supreme personality of Godhead, the supreme individual person. And all of us, we're also persons. We're eternal, individual souls who are fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme, infinitesimal parts of the intimate Supreme, like sparks of a great fire. That we never lose our identity as an individual soul, even after liberation, even after we attain perfection. We do not merge with the Supreme Lord. Rather, we attain our, what's called the Svarup, our eternal spiritual form by which we can directly serve the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. We never lose our individuality. So in this way, the persons see themselves as eternal lovers of an eternally existing Supreme Being who possesses all attractive personal features and qualities. And we see that in the Vedic literatures we have so many just incredible descriptions of Krishna, of the Lord. They say that God has no form. And Prabhupada explains that they think that if you try and give God a form, or say that He has a form, then you're limiting the unlimited. And this is because, as Prabhupada mentions in many purports, it's because their only experience of form is of a material form, like the form we have. And therefore, immediately you try and project the idea of a form on the Supreme Lord. It means you're trying to limit Him, because they have no understanding of Krishna's transcendental spiritual form, which is not made of material, is not subject to material ingredients or contamination or influences. So devotees, they consider both themselves, the individual self, the world around them, both real and divine, the created energy of the Supreme Lord, a reflection of the eternally existing spiritual world. So in Bhagavad Gita, it's such a liberating experience, actually. You know, when you're living out there, you just try and reflect on when you're living out there in the world. It's such a struggle. It's such a, everyone's trying to be someone. They're trying to create an image for themselves. They're trying to fit into the world, trying to create their scene. But when you've become a Hare Krishna devotee, you can stop trying to be something you're not, to be what you really are, which is an eternal, loving servant of Krishna. And it's such a wonderful feeling, just to let go of that thing where you've got to be, everyone's, trying to be the one, supreme, the center of the universe, or supreme enjoyer. And it's such an artificial experience. So when you come to Krishna consciousness, you just give up pretending to be something you're not, to be what you really are, which is an eternal loving servant of Krishna. It's such a wonderful, comforting feeling. It's a nice feeling. So in Bhakti Yoga, we're invited to redefine ourselves as eternal souls, as a perfect part of the Supreme, possessing a divine nature in relation to the Supreme Lord. And when our divine nature is fully awakened, we can actually transcend. When we perfect our spiritual consciousness, we can transcend this material world and return to our original home in the spiritual world, the kingdom of the Supreme Lord, where we can live eternally. And of course, as far as difficulties and problems go, we see that the voidists, the impersonalists, they're trying to escape these difficulties of life, these problems of life, the frustrations of living in this world. But in our bhakti school, we learn to see difficulties and obstacles in our life as part of our spiritual journey, actually. Stepping stones to take us places in our spiritual life where we never could have gone without them. As soon as you step onto the spiritual path, it's inevitable. You're going to experience some difficulties, some obstacles coming from the world around you, coming from within yourself. So the devotees, they a lot of people, when the problems come, the difficulties come, they think, well, here's my bad luck coming to haunt me again. But the devotees, they simply see the supreme sculptor, Krishna, helping us to chip away everything that stands in our way of our spiritual progress. Because there's so many anamsas there. So all these, so it is explained that Krishna is orchestrating this whole universe around each of us individually, just to bring us back to Godhead, bring us back to our eternal home. So all these little difficulties and obstacles that we're experiencing in our life is just meant there to help us, just to help ultimately bring us to the platform of spiritual perfection, so we can return to our real home in the spiritual world. So, even though, and of course, it's also these difficulties, when the obstacles come, they should be impetus for us to when people experience obstacles and difficulties and even disasters in their life, they take shelter, but not of God, not of Krishna. They take shelter of their own minds, their intelligence. They take shelter of intoxication, or they just absorb themselves in just sleeping. Some people sleep. Some people are going through difficulties. They just sleep. I know one guy used to sleep for like 3 days sometimes at a time, like a real bear. They just sleep. Some people just get absorbed in just full-on illicit activities, gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, whatever. Or they take shelter of the fallible soldiers of those people that can't really even help them. psychologists, psychiatrists. And but devotees, when difficulties come, we see it's an opportunity to take shelter of the bhakti yoga process, take shelter of chanting, take shelter of reading the scriptures, to take shelter and association of those devotees who have strong faith, to take shelter of the devotional service to the Lord, and to pray. Prayer is also one of the processes of bhakti yoga. To come before the Lord in humbly and honestly and sincerely. You can just pour out your heart and just pray to the Lord. And he's some people think, well, does Krishna actually hear our prayers? But Krishna is so close to us. He's so near, yet he's so far away. He lives in the spiritual world, trillions of light years away, but he's right there in our hearts. And we can just connect with him at any moment, at any time. He's there. And he can reciprocate with us. And it is said, that Krishna, there's that saying, Krishna helps those who help themselves. So we cannot succeed in our spiritual life without Krishna's blessings. But still we have to show our sincerity by making a sincere effort in our spiritual practices, in our devotional service. And the more Krishna sees us taking shelter of him and asking him for help and mercy and spiritual inspiration and the determination we need to achieve success in our spiritual path, the more Krishna will help us. The more we want, the more we desire to have that help, the more Krishna will reciprocate. So in Bhakti Yoga we perform a very special meditation. We've got the japa meditation, which is commonly, we see, practiced on beads. And, japa meditation, it's a very versatile meditation. You can do it while sitting on a cushion, on the floor, sitting on a chair. You can go walking and chanting. Some people like to go down sometimes to the beach and chant, just walk along the beach, it's just like taking in that vastness of the ocean, taking in that. And during japa meditation, we're chanting this Hare Krishna mantra softly to ourselves. And it is said that in the solitude of japa meditation, you can offer your heart's deepest feelings as you connect to the Supreme through transcendental sound. So all that japa meditation requires is you focus your attention on sound vibration. And of course we learn also that ideally the best time to chant is in the early hours of the morning when the world around you is quiet and there's not so much going on. Actually, you ever tried chanting in the middle of the day? It's so hard. They say the best time to chant early in the morning or the night time's much easier too, But I was just reading also that why is it that chanting japa is so hard? You've got to really sometimes you've got to really push yourself, Whereas kirtan is just so easy. It's just easy just to get in the kirtan and you're just chanting, It's like, wow, it's just flowing. And I was reading this, and it said that because the congregational chanting of the holy name is actually the real yugadam, and therefore there's a special taste there you get from the chanting. And actually, I just completed a cookbook, but I'm also putting together a book on chanting. And there's so many amazing books actually written by devotees on chanting. And one of those, and one thing we should understand is said that the true quality of a Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi is a taste for chanting the holy name of Krishna. It means we can measure our own advancement in devotional service by how much we're attached to chanting, by how much taste we have for chanting, the holy name, and how nicely we chant, of course, and how purely we chant. You know, it's a kind of a reality. I mean, sometimes I see even older devotees, and you hear them chanting. It's like, is he glad they chanting the Hare Krishna mantra? It's like, you know, air conditioner, air conditioner, air conditioner. Just, I mean, we have to really chant nicely. We have to really try and pronounce the syllables very nicely. So it is said, you know, in the Bhakti school, that just as a runner is known by how they run, or a swimmer is known by how they swim, so a devotee can be judged by how they chant. It means the mark of a true Vaishnava or Vaishnavi is their chanting, which means by which they, and this chanting is by which they purify their heart and please Krishna. So this chanting, yeah, it's a special thing. And you know, of course, Lord Chaitanya, he taught us that we should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind. This is actually the path to pure chanting, that in time it leads to full dependence on Krishna. And humility is a natural result of a devotee's sincere desire to advance in Krishna consciousness and fully surrender to one's heart to Krishna. And it is said, you know, we read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Krishna is just distributing he's freely giving pure love of Godhead and his mercy to everyone. But it is also said, if you read between the lines, that that mercy and that special mercy which he's freely distributing, it only comes into that heart which feels itself the most fallen and most humble and in most need of that mercy. So, I mean, in general, devotees of Krishna always consider themselves fallen because we are fully aware of the contamination in our hearts and the painfully aware of our, you know, incapacity to chant purely. But Lord Chaitanya is teaching us that humility is the key. It's the key to taking full shelter of the holy name. So although we're very, very tiny, tiny souls and very fallen, we're not hopeless. Our hope is in the mercy of the holy name of Krishna. And to receive that special mercy, we must place ourselves in the hands of the holy name and give up any sense of being the supreme controller and enjoyer of this world. All we must do is listen carefully to the chanting and allow that holy name to just bathe our mind, our intelligence, our consciousness, our false ego, our material consciousness in the nectar of Krishna's name. You know, we have no qualifications. We only have Krishna to depend on as we try our best to chant his name purely. So, as I said, to attract Krishna's causeless mercy, we must first realize the need for the holy name's mercy. That we are dependent on Krishna's independent desire to offer us that mercy. You know, we are bound by the neck, by the chains of Maya. And our material consciousness is generally filled with false hopes and aversions and anxieties and, you know, contaminations from 10,000s of lifetimes living in this material world. Therefore, our only hope is to have full faith in the holy name as we take shelter of the holy name, as we engage ourselves in a loving devotional service of Krishna and Guru. You know, Srila Prabhupada once said that we should chant Hare Krishna and cry like a child cries for its mother. Actually, you know, sometimes if a baby just wants to get some attention, You know, some babies, they always like to get attention, right? They just cry. And the mother comes, you know. So the mother, but if the mother knows that cry. She knows she just wants some attention, you know, this baby. You know, but if the baby falls out of his cot or something and starts crying, the mother, that cry is a different cry, right? So it is said, you know, when you're really calling out in your chanting to Krishna, and he really hears that, that desperation for that mercy, you know, that desire to really connect with Krishna. Krishna, he's force. He becomes powerless not to actually take notice of your chanting, and he reciprocates. So it means when we chant Hare Krishna, we're in the mood of crying out to Krishna, begging Krishna, please accept me, please uplift me. You know, I have fallen into the material, I'm suffering due to separation from you. You know, we want Krishna to extend his hand, to lift us up, to bring us close to him, to embrace us, and lift us from the material platform to the spiritual platform, to be with him. So while chanting, we're meant to be reaching out with our hearts to Krishna. You know, Lord Gauranga is calling, I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, who else is your friend? I have brought the medicine to destroy the illusion of Maya. Now beg with his holy name and take it. So we must call out sincerely from the heart, from the soul, because we are aware that our need for shelter really should be as urgent as a fish's need for water to breathe. This is, in that mood, you're really going to attract Krishna and attract Krishna's mercy and the mercy of the holy name. Somebody said, if we learn to beg for the Maha Mantra, we would have learnt to take shelter of the holy name. And begging requires we approach the holy name without false ego, in full humility. Means chanting with very sincere feelings. You know, begging for the holy name. You know, Krishna is telling us in Bhagavad Gita that we do not belong to this material body or this material world, that we're in fact eternal spirit souls who have an eternal loving relationship with him. So realizing this, a devotee of Krishna thinks, I do not belong to myself, actually. I am Krishna's servant. My body belongs to him. I belong to him. Everything I have is his. He is my protector. He is my maintainer. Whatever he wants from me, I will do. I have no separate will. So this is how one embraces this mood of surrender, and thinking oneself very fallen and insignificant, takes full shelter of the holy name for Krishna's pleasure. So this giving of the self to Krishna is the process of surrender, fully believing that Krishna will protect us and give us ultimate shelter and care for us fully. You know, especially in our most difficult times. You know, this acceptance of Krishna's shelter is said to be the doorway to bhakti, without which we cannot begin to love Krishna. So this giving of the self to Krishna, it's the process of surrender. Surrender means giving up the concept that we are separate from him. You know, that we have an independent existence separate from him, that we are his competitors. We're just accepting our actual position as a tiny servant, fully under his protection. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Does anyone have any questions? Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra ki